everyone, and welcome to this edition of Stream On. I'm Jim Williams, your host, and here we are in the dog days of summer in August. And I don't know about you, but when I go to relax, maybe it's the beach, maybe it's the mountains, it's always fun to sit back and have an opportunity to binge some programming that I have either wanted to see or just somebody had given me an idea and said, hey, have you seen this show? And maybe it's a good chance to catch up on it. Well, such is the case of The Tower, okay? Now, The Tower is a fantastically done miniseries, which you can see now on Britbox. It's based on Kate London's Metropolitan trilogy, and it stars, two outstanding actors. One, of course, we know is as Gemma Whelan, and the other is Jimmy Akingbola. Now, both of whom we've spoken to before, are fantastic. Gemma, of course, from the Game of Thrones and Killing Eve. Of course, Jimmy Akingbola from Arrow, Bel-Air, and a number of other outstanding programs. It's grounded in the terrifying realities of life on the beat as a cop. Now, this limited-run mystery revolves around the shocking events at a tower in London's East Side, where a veteran cop and a teenage girl have fallen to their deaths, and a rookie cop is now missing. Charged with figuring out what happened is DSI Sarah Collins, played by, of course, Gemma, and it's her job to find out what happened in the dark heart of policing in a complex and very diverse city. So, our guest is a brilliant guy in his own right. He, of course, is Patrick Harbinson. Now, Patrick, if you don't know the name, has a very cool resume. He was the former executive producer of Homeland, producer on 24, Law and Order SVU, just to name a few. So his bona fides when it comes to being involved in a cop show is pretty close to unmatched. So Patrick is our guest today. And Patrick, the thing that strikes me most about The Tower is your ability as an executive producer and a writer adapting this to a screenplay. It's gritty, and in the first 3 minutes or 4 minutes of the show, you are hooked instantly. It's got everything that you want in a mystery, and it gets you right from the get-go. Let's talk about how you were able to weave this wonderful story into such a gritty but very, very entertaining program.
Again, good. I'm glad you felt that. I agree. Well, two things to say to that. One, Kate London's a good storyteller, right. And what I loved about the novel was that I never felt in this one that there was a twist that I felt you've done that for the story. You've invented that. Everything felt to me very organic to the set of circumstances that she started us with, in those opening 3 minutes. So that for me was a delight to read, because I thought, okay, I've got a really good piece of material here. And then B, if I needed to change anything, that was going to be my benchmark. It's like every twist, it has to be earned. And I did, there are things I added because I felt we needed some narrative hooks occasionally that weren't in the novel. But that was my standard, basically, what Kate had done. And I would say it's always been something that's, I've done quite a lot of cop shows, Law and Order, and I've done thrillers and so on. Plotting really matters to me, those twists and turns that they come out of character. So again, that's why I love the novels, and it's why I was determined to be true to that sort of level of psychological realism, so that you never felt, oh, I'm watching a TV version of a cop show. Once we'd sucked you in, I wanted us to be able to hold the audience and have them believe in everything our characters were doing.
You've got a couple of people who are two of my favorite, not just actors, but people in Gemma Whelan and Jimmy Akingbola.
Great.
Not a bad cast that you're dealing with here, my friend.
Yes, we were lucky. We were lucky. I mean, Gemma was actually one of the actors that was on Kate's very, very short list of favorites to play Sarah. So when she read it and liked it, that was a good day for us. And she was a delight to work with. And I actually, I genuinely mean that. And I've worked with some wonderful people, and Gemma's right up there. And then Jimmy, it's funny, I knew his work, I didn't know it that well. And what we'd done in his case, we'd done open casting. So it was like, let's just get the best actor. So Jimmy was one of the actors who read for it, and kind of just took the part. Basically, he was just everything we needed in it and more. He just, I mean, you know what he's like. He has this warmth, effortless warmth on screen. Can be tough if he needs to be. He's just a really, really interesting actor who makes really complicated things look really, really almost invisible. You know, he's a real craftsman. So, and again, it was one of those happy shoots where everyone got on, even though we're shooting, in Liverpool in the middle of COVID. So it's not, it's not a great place to be. But it was good. And those two were key to it, actually. They both were, they led the show in a really good way. But no, we got lucky there, both as people and as actors.
You were just talking about shooting during COVID. If you give us a little insight, that'd be fascinating to find out how difficult it was to shoot. I mean, these are difficult shows to shoot under normal circumstances. But how did the situation with COVID affect how you did things?
It's the atomization of the crew and the process. So if you're all working in your little bubbles, I mean, I'm one of the lucky ones wearing the right colored lanyard, so I can talk to anyone as long as I'm wearing the right sort of mask.
Sure.
But I am talking to everyone wearing a mask, and the actors are talking to each other wearing masks until the moment you're about to shoot, when down the masks come. And you might think, that obviously hospital staff, ER docs and so on, they're wearing masks, they don't complain about it. But it's funny what it does to a film set. It actually makes communication much harder. And you realize as you're watching, things aren't getting through. You actually have to be so much clearer about what you want and what you need. The simple, literal fact that the hearing's more difficult. So that, and the fact that being tested every day is you get used to that pretty quickly, boring as it is. It's as I said, the fact that you can't gather around the monitors. It's hard to have a discussion because you're having to keep your social distance. And in pre-production, the fact that you're doing scouts together, you're not in a van, or if you're in a van, you're armored in perspex everywhere. So all those things where script issues are talked about between me and Jim Loach, the brilliant director, they're really hard to do. And again, it sounds like it's not that hard to do. We're not doing open heart surgery, but just what was the natural part of filmmaking and was the fun part of filmmaking, working out how to make things, A, make them, and then B, make them better, which is just done by talk. All those things become a lot harder. Shooting becomes a lot harder. That was the strain it put us under, which you didn't notice because you get used to anything pretty quickly. So after the first week, we were used to it. But when I was looking at the first cuts, I was thinking, oh God, we missed that. And so that's why I went back and we did a whole week's pickups in London, simply to get some of the things we'd missed, or frankly, mistakes I'd made in the writing. We fixed those. So it's just harder. And the last thing I was shooting was, I hadn't shot since I had been on a set since late 2019 in LA on Homeland, and just the difference there between, shooting in the sun in LA with a crew that really knows each other and a cast that really knows each other, where the atmosphere is really great and the directors, and then in freezing cold in Liverpool, honestly, with everyone wearing masks.
It was easy, right? Yeah.
It's very different, very different. Anyway, it made the subtle things harder. It made the subtle things of performance harder, note giving harder, and so And in the end, that's why I'm really proud of what we did, because even though it's a relatively simple show, it's just a cop show, it's important to get those performances right. And it's harder when everyone's wearing masks.
It's funny, Liverpool in many ways becomes another character in this.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'd been to school in the north near Liverpool, but I'd rarely been in the city, so I didn't know the city well. And it was a bit hard to find the right locations. Again, COVID, you want to be in a tower block, but the residents don't want you anywhere near there because of COVID. So again, that's putting more strain on you. In the end, it had an odd quality to it. Jim Loach was determined, sometimes almost satirically so, that we didn't look like every police show. And actually Liverpool helped with that, because, we're supposed to be set in London, and it does look like London. But if you really know London, there's just a little edge that's not quite London, which I actually think helped the feeling that you were watching something different.
As we wrap things up here, what do you hope that people get away from this? I mean, because it's a fascinating, three-parter, and as I said before, it really gets you from the go. It's not one of those things that builds to get your attention. It grabs your attention. So, what is it that you hope that the viewers get from it?
Well, obviously, I hope they are grabbed from the get-go and that they stay with it, because I think it's a ride worth taking. And what I was really interested in, and I think Kate is too, was just making people question assumptions. I mean, you've seen it, you know what the issues, that the heart of it, and so on. What does language mean? Different people hear different things. What's a joke? What isn't a joke? What are our assumptions? What I loved about the novel and what I was able to bring out in the adaptation is that every character has a point of view, and if you take your time and listen to everyone, you will actually end up in a much healthier place. So without wanting to send any sort of pompous messages, that just making people pause before coming to a conclusion, I'd love if that sort of contributed to that sort of thing.
Patrick, lastly, we might be in the golden age in many ways of television, in so much as now we have Britbox and we have the ability here in the United States, and I'm sure you guys, around the world as well. We get to sample and get to see things that we may never have gotten to see, or may have taken 2 or 3 years to get here. But now, through streaming, and the world has become a much smaller place, and we're getting to see outstanding content from all over the globe, because of streaming services like Britbox and others who, basically showcase these things and give us, an opportunity as viewers to see some really outstanding, work that doesn't come from Los Angeles or Vancouver or New York.
Yes, we have. I mean, I'm a little skeptical about the golden age of TV. I mean, I was working in LA in the age of must-see TV, when NBC was just dominating the networks with ER and Homicide, and we had Law and Order and so on. So I think TV is cyclical in terms of its golden age at the moment. I think TV is going through an identity crisis in terms of will the big American series, is there a place for them? Will we see again a Sopranos or an ER, just to take a genre show, or a Homeland? We will see a Game of Thrones again, because they're trying to make one already. But there's an identity crisis. How long is the series meant to be now? Will it just be miniseries? It's very interesting that, and I think the streamers have sort of confused the market like that naturally, as people are trying to work out what they want to watch. And as you say, the access to international television is now sort of almost instant. I mean, I was amazed that Britbox were putting it out so quickly. as you say, about 5, 6, 10 years ago, this probably would have sold to PBS if we'd been lucky, and you would have seen it, a year later. So
Right.
that instantaneous streaming is really interesting. But again, I say this is where I'm skeptical about, is everything really so different? Because how long ago was Borgen on? When we were all watching that and saying this is brilliant. So we have been aware that there are brilliant series made in other countries, not just in the States, and not just picking up, British crime dramas. So I think we should hesitate. Again, this is the lesson of the Tower. Question your assumptions. Is it so different? Where it's different, I think, as I said, is what is the ideal length of a drama series, a comedy series now? Is there a new ideal? Is there a new template that everyone will be making things to? I'm not sure there will be. I mean, for me, with the 3 hours, I would have written more happily, but I knew the novel just was right for 3 hours. If we make more, I will make. I'll do 4 or 5 hours, but never more than that, because I want the narratives to be compressed. I want them to be, once you're watching, I don't want to let go of you. So it's interesting. I, who, if you like, grew up as a writer in LA working on Law and Order, where I did 116 episodes. I'm now looking at a drama series where if I do 5, I'll be thinking, is that too many? That indicates that the world is changing a bit, certainly.
Well, that's your point's a very good point, because I've been in this business now as a producer, director, and writer for almost 44 years, and we're seeing, even before the streaming situation, we're seeing where you're getting 12, 14, maybe 18 episodes is a year, when back in the day 22 to 24 was pretty much your average. And now we're seeing that cut back to maybe 12.
Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, that part of it is, I think the thing for me that's exciting is I'm now getting to see shows from the UK, from Australia, from Sweden, from New Zealand, from pretty much anywhere that I didn't get to see before. And there's over 536 different scripted dramas that are going to be produced this year. So it's not like there's a shortage of content, for sure.
Yeah, that's a scary fact, because when you're making drama, you're realizing, even though you can access, you now have through the streamers, and through the streamers' competitors, because Showtime, HBO, whatever, they're still in the game, so they know they're competing, so they're looking now abroad. You have the access. The issue is, can you get the audience? Because as you say, that's a scary number, 536 dramas. I mean, no one in the world obviously is going to watch all those. How do you know about them, and how do you see them? And then, interestingly, because I think the great American shows, and this is why I wanted to come to America, all those years ago, the great American shows are like big novels. You're watching West Wing for 5 or 6 years. You're watching ER for 8, whatever it was, 10 or years, when they're good. Ditto X-Files. Well, you know the ones I'm talking about, or the great Breaking Bad, things like that. So you're unlikely to get those novels, those great series, if series are basically are only getting 2 or 3 outings, because there's so much on. You really will have to be special to cut through, and so that audiences stick with you, and the streamers or whoever is funding it are prepared to put the vast amounts of money in to make a second and a third series. And on the creative side, your writers, directors, actors, if you like, are not going to have the time to really get to know themselves, the stories they're telling, and begin to tell them better. The thing about the great series was they got better. They were all like bell curves, and so that, I wonder if those series are going to disappear. I don't know. That's what's really interesting, and I think if they do disappear, it will be because there are 536 scripted dramas being made, and such a time. There's basically not too much, but how on earth do you choose which of those 536 is going to get a second season?
I'm sure it's I'm sure it's a tough situation. And as a programmer, you sit back and look at it and go, well, is more better or is just more? And
Yeah.
that's kind of how it shakes out. And hopefully, and I think this is kind of, Patrick, I mean, you know yourself from being in LA, that usually the cream does rise to the top, and the shows that aren't particularly well done, fall by the wayside. But we'll see.
That's very true. I mean, that's a good and that's a good way of looking at it. I think what has happened is that, if you like, to mix our metaphors, the ocean is so wide that
Right.
it's a bit difficult to spot the cream rising to the top. I think it will. I think that's right, and I think there will be a settling down. I think if we were having this conversation 5 years from now, we'll be talking about a different landscape. But at the moment, it's really interesting.
Well, and the other part too is you don't need 5 to 8 to 10 million people viewing the show to make it successful. You can get away with 3 or 4 million people watching
Correct.
a show would be successful, because people are now paying for it, as before it was coming to them via free television.
Correct. Yeah. No, very true.
So anyway, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today, and I wish you all the best, and promise you'll come back when you've got a new show.
I'd love to.
Thanks very much to our guest, Patrick Harbinson, the executive producer of The Tower. As we said before, you must binge it. It's a fantastic, edge-of-your-seat thriller, The Tower, now playing on Britbox. We'll be back with more of Stream On right after these words from BMW.
At BMW, we know leaving the road wasn't easy, but anticipating our return taught us to appreciate every drive. The exhilaration of the ultimate adventure. Moments spent with your favorite co-pilots. And the freedom to explore just because. Our time to rejoin the road is finally here.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Stream On. If you're not part of the over 75,000 people worldwide who are part of our family here, well, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, it's easy. We make it free. You can get us at the Apple Podcast Store. You can get us at Google, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and of course over on Amazon. So we're very simple to get, and even if you have a assisted device like, say, Alexa or Google or Siri, all you have to do is say, Alexa, please play the latest edition of Stream On with Jim Williams, and poof, it'll come right to you, okay? So do us a favor, go out and subscribe today, and each week you're going to get a brand new edition of the show sent to your phone, your tablet, or to both, okay? So please do that for us. We greatly appreciate it. Okay. So we said before, we're talking about binging summer, but there's also something that begins this coming week, and it is football. The NFL preseason comes, and right after that's going to be, college football, and we'll be back into that very, very soon. So we're going to focus on football and the NFL, because this year there's going to be a lot of different things going on, and we want you to be up to date on what's going on to follow your favorite team in the NFL. Okay, so we're going to talk football next week on Stream On with Jim Williams. Until that time, have a safe and wonderful week. See you next time right here on Stream On.